I told Mom where you hid the money. She took the car and left.
Hey, family. Welcome back to Melanin Stories, Hub with Marcus. If you're new here, you just walked into a space where we tell stories that hit different. Stories about love, healing, and the messy, beautiful journey of becoming who we're meant to be. And if you've been rocking with me, thank you for coming back. You already know what time it is. Now, before we dive in, let me ask you to do something real quick. Hit that subscribe button right now. I'm not playing. Pause the video, click it, and turn on notifications. Because what I'm about to share with you today, this is the kind of story you're gonna want to tell somebody about. The kind that makes you call your best friend at midnight. Like, yo, you need to hear this. So subscribe, because we've got more of these coming, and you don't want to miss a single one. Today's story is about a man who had everything the world told him he should want. Money, power, success, a beautiful woman on his arm. But standing in an elevator one Tuesday afternoon, he came face to face with the one thing money can't buy and success can't replace. The question is, when your past shows up holding the future you walked away from, can you find the courage to choose differently this time? Stay with me. This one's gonna move you. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor of the Presidio Tower in downtown San Francisco, and Darius Mitchell's entire world stopped. Not slowed down, not paused for dramatic effect. Stopped like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart until time itself bent around the moment. He was standing there with Caroline, his fiancée, her hand warm in his, both of them dressed for the venture capital conference happening on the 45th floor. She was mid-sentence, saying something about the keynote speaker, her voice bright and confident, the way it always was. Caroline moved through the world like she belonged everywhere, and Darius loved that about her. She never second-guessed herself. But none of that mattered now, because standing in the elevator, one hand gripping a small backpack covered in dinosaurs, and the other holding the tiny hand of a little boy, was Kendra Lawson. And the little boy, God, the little boy, had Darius's eyes. His exact eyes. That same deep brown that looked almost amber when the light hit them right. The same thick eyebrows. The same small dimple in his left cheek that only showed when he smiled, which he wasn't doing now because he was staring up at Darius with a mix of curiosity and caution that broke something inside him. Kendra's face was carefully blank, the way it used to get when she was holding back a tidal wave of emotion. She'd perfected that mask during their years building Levante Tech together, sitting across from venture capitalists who underestimated her, presenting to boardrooms full of men who interrupted her mid-sentence. Darius knew that face. He'd watched her put it on 1,000 times. But her eyes were screaming. "Darius?" Caroline's voice cut through the frozen moment. She squeezed his hand, concerned. "You okay?" The elevator was still open, the doors patiently waiting. A few people behind them in the lobby were starting to shift impatiently, probably wondering why this couple was just standing there, like they'd forgotten how elevators worked. Kendra's lips parted slightly, then closed. She looked down at the little boy, then back at Darius, and something passed across her face, something between resignation and defiance. "We can take the next one," she said quietly, already pulling the boy backward. But the boy resisted, his small voice piping up with the fearless curiosity that only 4-year-olds possess. "Mommy, why can't we ride with them? There's room." 4 years old. Darius did the math in his head automatically, even though he already knew. even though he'd known the moment he saw those eyes. "Cameron, baby, we're waiting for the next elevator," Kendra said, her voice steady but strained. Cameron. His son's name was Cameron. Actually, the word came out of Darius's mouth before his brain had fully caught up. He stepped forward, pulling Caroline with him, because his hand was still gripping hers. "There's plenty of room, please." It wasn't a request. It was barely a coherent thought. It was the sound of a man who just realized that the elevator doors closing would be the worst thing that could happen, because who knew when they'd open again on this particular configuration of people, this exact moment where everything could change. Kendra's jaw tightened. She looked at Darius, really looked at him, and he saw our years of absence in that look. 4 years of birthday parties he'd missed. 4 years of scraped knees and bedtime stories and first words and first steps. 4 years of her doing it alone while he built empires and dated other women and convinced himself he'd made the right choice. Kendra. Her name came out rough, almost broken. "Please?" She exhaled slowly, and Darius watched the wall come down just enough for exhaustion to show through. This woman who'd once stayed up 72 hours straight to meet a product deadline, who'd pitched their company to Sequoia Capital on 3 hours of sleep and closed a $20 million Series B, looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "Okay," she said finally, and stepped into the elevator. See Amron's small hand still in hers. Caroline had gone very still beside Darius. She wasn't stupid. She could read a room better than most. And this room, this tiny elevator that suddenly felt smaller than a coffin, was telling her a story she hadn't signed up to hear. The doors closed. 6 floors had never felt longer. If you're still with me, drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had a moment where your past and your present collided so hard you didn't know which way was up? Because that's where Darius is right now. And before we see what happens next, let me take you back. Because to understand why this elevator ride is tearing him apart, you need to understand the man he used to be, and the man he swore he'd never become. 28 years earlier. Darius was 7 years old the first time he understood what absence felt like. It was a Saturday morning in Oakland, the kind of California spring day where the sun came through the windows at just the right angle to make everything look golden and possible. His mother, Rochelle Mitchell, was in the kitchen making pancakes. Real ones, from scratch, with blueberries she'd bought at the farmer's market the day before. The smell filled their small apartment, mixing with the sound of Anita Baker on the stereo and his mother's off-key singing. Darius was sitting at the kitchen table, swinging his legs, because they didn't quite reach the floor yet, working on a drawing of a robot that could fix broken things. He was always drawing robots back then. Robots that could clean up oil spills. Robots that could build houses for people who didn't have them. Robots that could make his mother smile more. "Baby, go see if your father wants pancakes," Rochelle said without turning around, her voice carrying that particular kind of hope that Darius would later recognize as the sound of a woman who hadn't given up yet. Darius slid off the chair and padded down the short hallway to his parents' bedroom. The door was open. The bed was empty. His father's side looked like it always did lately. Covers thrown back hastily, the pillow still dented from his head, his slippers gone. Which meant he'd gotten up and left again. Darius stood in the doorway for a long moment, staring at that empty space, and something cold settled in his chest. It felt like standing outside in the rain without a jacket, except the rain was on the inside. He walked back to the kitchen, slowly. "He's not there, Mama." Rochelle's shoulders stiffened, but only for a second. Then she forced them back down, turned around with a smile that did reach her eyes and said, "Well, more pancakes for us then, huh? But Darius saw the way her hand trembled as she flipped a pancake. Saw the way she blinked fast, like she was trying to keep something from falling. His father, Marcus Mitchell Sr. Yeah, Darius was a junior. Came back around noon. He was a big man, tall and broad-shouldered, the kind of presence that filled a room whether he was trying to or not. He worked in construction when he worked, and had hands that looked like they'd been carved from the same material as the buildings he helped create. Strong hands. Distant hands. He walked in carrying a paper bag from the hardware store, set it on the counter, and kissed Rochelle on the cheek like he'd just stepped out for 5 minutes instead of disappearing before dawn. They were all out of the nails I needed yesterday, he said by way of explanation, his voice deep and matter-of-fact. Had to go to the spot in Berkeley? The store opens at 9, Rochelle said quietly. Had to get there early. Saturday rush. It was a lie. Darius didn't know how he knew, but he knew. Maybe it was the way his father's eyes didn't quite meet his mother's. Maybe it was the smell of someone else's perfume mixing with the sawdust scent that usually clung to his father's clothes. Maybe it was just the cold thing in his chest getting colder, teaching him to recognize the shape of abandonment. His father glanced at him then, and for just a second, something flickered across his face. Guilt? Regret? Love? Darius couldn't tell. His father was a mystery to him, a man who lived in the same house but existed in a different universe. One where 7-year-old boys asking for help with homework or wanting to play catch were just obstacles between him and wherever he really wanted to be. "Hey, Junior," his father said, his voice careful. "You good?" Darius nodded, even though he wasn't sure what good meant anymore. His father nodded back, satisfied, and that was the end of it. He went to the living room, turned on a basketball game, and disappeared into it, the way other people disappeared into books or daydreams. Present, but absent. There, but gone. Darius learned something that day, standing in the kitchen with cold pancakes and a mother who was trying not to cry. Being there wasn't the same as showing up. His father was always there. Most of the time, anyway. He paid rent when he worked. He showed up to parent-teacher conferences. He fixed things around the apartment when they broke. But he was never really present. Never really with them in any way that mattered. And Darius, at 7 years old, made himself a promise. He would never be that kind of man. He, W1, never makes someone feel this invisible, this alone, in a room full of people. It was a good promise. He meant it. But here's the thing about promises you make when you're 7. You don't yet understand how easy it is to become the thing you swore you'd never be. 12 years later, Darius graduated from UC Berkeley with degrees in computer science and business administration. Debt he'd be paying off until he was 40, and fire in his belly that could have powered a small city. He was 19 years old and done being poor. Done watching his mother work 2 jobs while his father drifted in and out of their lives like fog. Done living in a world that looked at young black men and saw statistics instead of potential. He had this idea, this beautiful, impossible idea, about how technology could democratize access to financial services for the people the banks didn't want to serve. The immigrant families, the formerly incarcerated, trying to rebuild. The single mothers like his own, who got denied for loans because the algorithms didn't account for the complexity of survival. The idea was brilliant. The idea was going to change everything. The idea was also completely unfunded, technically ambitious to the point of fantasy, and being dreamed up by a 19-year-old black kid from Oakland who had more passion than connections. That's where Kendra came in. They met at a startup incubator in San Francisco, a converted warehouse in Soma, where ambitious 20-somethings gathered to drink bad coffee. pitch improbable ideas, and pretend that sleeping on office couches was a lifestyle choice rather than desperation. Darius was sitting in the corner, hunched over his laptop, trying to debug code that absolutely refused to cooperate. He'd been at it for maybe 14 hours straight, surviving on Red Bull and the kind of stubborn determination that could move mountains or kill you, whichever came first. That's not gonna work. He looked up, annoyed, ready to tell whoever was interrupting him to mind their business. And there she was. Kendra Lawson was 22, 3 years older than Darius, with dark skin that glowed like she'd figured out how to bottle sunlight, natural hair pulled back in a puff, and the kind of direct gaze that made you either rise to meet it or shrink away. She was wearing an oversized Howard University hoodie, ripped jeans, and Jordans that looked like they'd seen better days. She was the most beautiful thing Darius had ever seen. But that's not what stopped him. What stopped him was the way she was looking at his screen, not with judgment, but with genuine interest and understanding. Was me?" he said, trying not to sound as exhausted as he felt. "Your authentication sequence." She pointed at his screen without asking permission, leaning over his shoulder. She smelled like cocoa butter and ambition. "You're trying to build a trust layer for our users who don't have traditional credit histories, right? But you're using the same verification protocols the banks use. That's not gonna work. You're trying to democratize access with tools designed to exclude. It's like trying to break down a wall with a hammer made of the same wall." Darius stared her, then at his screen, then back at her. "Who are you?" "Kendra. I'm building something similar, except mine is focused on micro, lending in underserved communities. And I've been banging my head against the same problem for 6 months." She straightened up, crossing her arms. "But I think I figured it out. And I think you and I should probably be working together instead of separately. Because what you're building is the infrastructure, and what I'm building is the application layer. And together, we could actually change something." Darius blinked. "We just met 30s ago." "Yeah? And I've already identified the critical flaw in your code and proposed a strategic partnership. Imagine what we could do with a whole hour." She grinned, and it was the kind of grin that promised trouble and possibility in equal measure. "Buy me some real coffee. Not this incubator garbage. And let's talk." They talked for 6 hours. By the end of it, they had the skeleton of a business plan, the beginning of a real friendship, and the sense that maybe, just maybe, they'd found their person. Not their romantic person. At least, not yet. But their person. The one who got it. Who saw the vision. Who matched the ambition. And wasn't afraid of the work. Within 3 months, they'd officially co-founded Levante Tech. Within 6 months, they'd built a working prototype. Within a year, they were pitching to actual investors with actual money. And Darius learned something about Kendra during that year. She was brilliant, relentless, and carried her own ghosts. She'd grown up in Atlanta, the youngest of 4 kids, raised by a single mother who'd worked herself into an early grave trying to keep food on the table. Kendra had gotten out through scholarships and student loans and sheer force of will, but she carried the weight of every family member who hadn't, every cousin who got caught up, every friend who settled for less because more felt impossible. She was building Levante Tech for them, for her mother, for the version of herself that might have existed if access hadn't been a lottery. Darius understood that. They were both running from poverty, and towards something that looked like legacy. They were perfect partners. The romance started slow, then all at once, the way the best ones do. It was a Tuesday night, 2 years into building Levante Tech. They just closed their series around $8 million from a group of investors who actually got what they were trying to do. They were 21 and 24, respectively, and felt invincible. They were celebrating in their tiny office, 1,000-square-foot space in the mission that smelled like coffee and dreams. Someone had brought champagne, even though neither of them really drank. Kendra popped the bottle, squealing when it sprayed everywhere, and Darius caught her around the waist to keep her from falling. And suddenly they were both laughing, dripping with champagne, and the way she looked at him in that moment, like he was the answer to a question she'd been afraid to ask. He kissed her. She kissed him back, and everything changed. "This is probably a terrible idea," she said when they finally came up for air, her forehead pressed against his. "Objectively, yes," he agreed. "Mixing business and pleasure. Every entrepreneurship book says, don't do it. We could ruin everything. We could." Or she pulled back just enough to look at him, her eyes serious. "We could build something even more incredible than we already have." And here's what Darius should have heard in that moment. The word build. The promise of construction, of foundation, of showing up day after day to create something that mattered. Here's what he actually heard. Success. Victory. Proof that he'd made it. That he was nothing like his father. They were together for 3 years. Best 3 years of Darius's life, if you'd asked him at the time. They built Levante Tech from $8 million to $70 million in valuation. They moved into a beautiful apartment in Pacific Heights with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. They talked about changing the world, and actually meant it. But slowly, so slowly, Darius didn't notice it happening. He started to disappear. Not physically. He was there. He came home most nights. He showed up to meetings. He remembered anniversaries and birthdays, and all the mechanical, observable requirements of being present. But he wasn't there. His mind was always 3 steps ahead, in the next deal, the next pitch, the next milestone. When Kendra talked about her day, he listened with one ear, while the other tracked the numbers scrolling across his mental spreadsheet. When she asked him questions about their future, not the company's future, their future, he gave answers that sounded right but felt hollow. He was becoming his father, and didn't even know it. Kendra got pregnant in the winter of their 3rd year together. She found out on a Thursday morning, took the test 3 more times to be sure, and then sat on the bathroom floor of their apartment trying to figure out how she felt. Terrified, excited, overwhelmed, hopeful, all of it at once. They'd never really talked about kids. There'd been vague mentions of someday, and maybe when the company is stable, but nothing concrete. They were too busy building so-me thing that mattered. Except now there was this, a someday that had arrived without asking permission. Maybe that was becoming a definitely, she told him that night, after work, when they were both exhausted from back-to-back meetings. She'd planned it differently. Imagined doing something cute with little baby shoes or a onesie or something Instagram-worthy. But she couldn't wait. The secret was burning through her. Darius. She stood in the doorway of their home office, watching him work. "I need to tell you something." He didn't look up from his screen, where he was reviewing the 4th quarter financial projections. "Darius, look at me." Something in her voice made him turn. She was holding something in her hand, gripping it tight. Her face was doing this thing, where she looked terrified and radiant at the same time. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Darius's brain went completely blank, like some Monet had wiped a hard drive. "You're—" He stood up slowly. "You're serious? 6 weeks. I found out this morning." She was still gripping the pregnancy test like a lifeline. "I know we didn't plan this. I know the timing is terrible. We're supposed to be meeting with Kleiner Perkins next month, and the product launch is—" "Hey!" He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, cutting off the spiral. "Hey, it's okay, is it?" Her voice was small, muffled against his chest. "Because I'm terrified, Darius. We are building a company. We're barely sleeping as it is. How are we supposed to?" "We'll figure it out. We always figure it out." He pulled back, tilted her face up to look at him. "You and me. We got this." And he meant it. In that moment, standing in their home office, with the woman he loved telling him they were going to be parents, he genuinely believed it. The problem was, believing it and living it are different things. The next 6 months were a slow unraveling. At first, everything seemed fine. Great, even. Darius went to doctor's appointments. He read pregnancy books. He talked about nursery colors and baby names with the same enthusiasm he brought to pitch meetings. But gradually, the weight of it, the reality of it, started to press down on him. They were in the middle of raising a Series B. Potential investors wanted to know about scalability, about market penetration, about their 5-year vision. They didn't want to hear about morning sickness or prenatal vitamins, or the fact that their CEO was about to become a father. Darius started staying later at the office, working weekends, missing dinner. "It's temporary," he told Kendra when she brought it up. "Just until we close this round. Then I'll slow down." But the round closed, and he didn't slow down. There was always another milestone, another deadline, another reason why now wasn't the time. Kendra's belly grew. She glowed, the way everyone said pregnant women did. But Darius noticed the other things too. The way she moved slower, the way she couldn't stay up as late working, the way she sometimes put her hand on her stomach and got this faraway look, like she was already somewhere he couldn't follow. He loved her. God, he loved her so much. But somewhere deep inside, in a place he wouldn't let himself look at too closely, he was terrified. Terrified of failing. Terrified of not being enough. Terrified of becoming his father. Present but absent. There but gone. So he did what scared men do. He ran while standing still. He showed up to the ultrasound appointments, but checked his phone during them. He asked about her day, but didn't really listen to the answers. He talked about baby names, but never committed to any. He was there, but he wasn't there. And Kendra, who'd spent her whole life learning to read situations and people and the 1,000 tiny ways someone can leave while staying, started to understand that she was alone in this. The night she left is burned into Darius's memory in a way that makes even the word memory feel inadequate. It was more like a scar on his consciousness, a thing that had happened to him, rather than something he'd lived through. She was 7 months pregnant. They were lying in bed, or rather, Darius was lying in bed, and Kendra was propped up on pillows because lying flat had become impossible. The baby was active, doing whatever babies do in there, and Kendra had grabbed his hand and placed it on her belly. Feel that? She was smiling, her eyes bright in the dim light from the window. That's his foot. Or her foot. Dr. Reyes said the baby is strong, active. Darius felt the movement under his palm, this tiny, impossible life that was part him and part Kendra, and entirely its own person. He should have felt wonder, should have felt connected to this moment, this miracle, this future. Instead, all he felt was panic, because that kick was real. That kick meant this was actua li happening. That kick meant he was going to be a father, and being a father meant showing up every single day, meant being present, not just physically, but emotionally, meant being the kind of man he'd promised himself he'd be, but had no idea how to actually be. His father's face flashed through his mind. That careful distance. That ability to be in a room, but not really in it. Darius? Kendra's voice pulled him back. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. He moved his hand away, settled back into the pillow. I've got that early meeting tomorrow. Need to get some sleep. It was a nothing moment, one of 1,000 small moments where he chose wrong without realizing he was choosing at all. But Kendra went very still beside him. He didn't see her face, but he heard her exhale, long and slow, like she was releasing something. When he woke up the next morning, she was gone. Not completely gone. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her toiletries still in the bathroom. But she wasn't in the apartment. And there was a note on the kitchen counter in her handwriting. Darius, I'm at my sister's. Don't come looking for me. Not yet. I've spent the last 6 months trying to convince myself that you just needed time. That once the baby was born, you'd be here. Really here. But I watched you last night, and I finally understood. You're terrified of becoming your father, and that fear is turning you into him. I won't do that to our child. I won't let them grow up feeling invisible, feeling like they have to earn your presence. So I'm making it easy for you. I'm leaving. You can keep building Levante Tech. You can keep chasing whatever it is you're chasing. And our baby will grow up knowing they were chosen, wanted, loved, even if only by me. Don't try to fix this. You can't fix what you won't admit is broken. Darius read the note 5 times. Then he got in his car and drove to work. He told himself she just needed space, that she was being hormonal, emotional, irrational, that she'd come back once she calmed down. He told himself a lot of things that weren't true. Kendra filed for full custody 2 weeks later. She wanted nothing from him except to be left alone. No child support. No co-parenting. John gone. Darius told himself he was respecting her wishes, giving her the space she'd asked for. Really, he was giving himself permission to run. 4 years later, back to the elevator climbed. 43. 44. Cameron was humming something under his breath, oblivious to the tension radiating off every adult in the small space. He'd pulled a small toy dinosaur from his pocket, a bright green T-Rex, and was making it walk across his palm. Mommy, can we get lunch after this? I'm hungry. Yes, baby. After Kendra's voice was gentle with him, a stark contrast to the rigid set of her shoulders. Caroline finally spoke, her voice careful and controlled. Darius, what's going on? He couldn't answer. His throat had closed up. He was staring at Cameron, at this little person who was walking and talking and existed in the world without him. 4 years. He'd missed 4 years. We should... Kendra started. But the elevator dinged, and the doors opened on the 45th floor. The conference lobby spread out before them. All glass and steel and tech industry money. People were milling around, networking, drinking coffee from tiny white cups. Cameron looked up at Darius, this complete stranger who'd been staring at him for 6 floors. Are you going to the dinosaur place too? Darius's heart cracked open. The what? The Science Museum, Mommy said, after her meeting. We're going to see the dinosaurs. He held up his toy T-Rex proudly. I like dinosaurs. They're really big and strong. But they also had small arms, which is funny. Cameron, sweetheart, we need to go. Kendra's hand tightened on his, and she moved toward the elevator doors, pulling him with her. But Darius couldn't let them go. Not again. Not without... Wait. The word came out louder than he intended. Several people in the lobby turned to look. Kendra froze. Her jaw was so tight he could see the muscle jumping. Don't do this here. He didn't even know what he was asking for. 5 minutes. 5 hours? 5 years? Caroline's hand slipped out of his. When he glanced at her, her face was carefully composed, but her eyes were doing calculations. Processing. Understanding. I'll go find our seats for the keynote, she said quietly. Take your time. She walked away, her heels clicking on the polished floor, and Darius knew that conversation was coming later. The big one. The one where she'd ask him who Kendra was, and who C. Amron was, and why he'd never mentioned having a son. But right now, none of that mattered. Right now, there was only this little boy with his father's eyes, clutching a toy dinosaur, and the woman who'd loved him enough to leave. Kendra, please. Can we talk? 5 minutes? You gave up the right to 5 minutes when you let me walk away 4 years ago. Her voice was low, controlled, but underneath it was a river of hurt. You didn't call. You didn't fight. You didn't show up when he was born. You didn't show up for any of it. I know I didn't. And He struggled to find words for the magnitude of his failure. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Wrong doesn't fix 4 years, Darius. Cameron was looking between them now, picking up on the tension, even if he didn't understand it. His small face was starting to crumple, the way kids' faces do when they sense their parent is upset. Mommy, are you okay? Kendra's expression shifted immediately, all that hurt and anger tucking itself away behind the wall she'd learned to build. She knelt down to Cameron's level, smoothing his shirt. I'm fine, baby. I just ran into an old friend. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings, that's all. Oh, Cameron seemed to accept this. He looked up at Darius again, curious. Are you the friend? Darius's voice caught. He knelt down too, bringing himself to eye level with his son. Yeah, I guess I am. What's your name? Cameron Lawson. I'm 4 years old. I know all the dinosaurs. Want to hear them? Without waiting for an answer, he launched into a list. Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Velociraptor, Velociraptor. He stumbled a little on the last one, but recovered. And Brachiosaurus. That one's hard to say. That's impressive. Darius's eyes were burning. I'm Darius. That's a cool name. Are you going to the dinosaur place? Cameron? Kendra interrupted gently, standing up and guiding him away. We, Ellie, need to go to my meeting. Mommy, now, baby? Darius stood too, something desperate clawing up his throat. Where are you staying? Can I see him again? Please. Kendra looked at him for a long moment, really looked at him, and what she saw must have hurt, because her face softened just a fraction. Not forgiveness, recognition, the recognition of someone who understood pain because they'd lived it too. We're at the Fairmont, room 2847. But Darius, she hesitated, then said it anyway. Don't come unless you're ready to actually show up. Not just today. Not just this week. I mean, really show up. Because he's 4 years old, and he doesn't understand why people leave yet. And I won't let you teach him. She walked away before he could respond, Cameron's small hand in hers. Darius watched them disappear into the crowd, his son's voice floating back as he asked his mother something about whether dinosaurs ate pancakes. He stood there in the middle of the conference lobby, people flowing around him like water around a stone, and realized that the elevator hadn't been the hard part. The hard part was everything that came after. If you're watching this and you're thinking about someone you let down, someone you walked away from, someone you were supposed to show up for but didn't, I see you. And I need you to keep watching, because this story isn't over. Hit that like button if this is hitting you right in the chest. And leave a comment telling me what's the hardest apology you've ever had to make. Because Darius is about to learn that sorry isn't enough. You have to do the work. Stay with me. We're getting to the good part. Darius didn't go to the keynote. He walked out of the Presidio Tower, got in his car, and drove. Not anywhere specific. Joe drove up 101 through the city, across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin County, along the winding coastal roads where the Pacific Ocean spread out beside him like possibility. His phone buzzed approximately 6,000 times. Caroline, probably, his business partner, the VP of product, who needed him to approve something. He ignored all of it. He kept seeing Cameron's face, those eyes, his eyes, that curious, open expression, that easy way he talked about dinosaurs, like they were the most important thing in the world, which maybe they were when you were 4. He kept hearing Kendra's voice. Don't come unless you're ready to actually show up. What did that even mean? Except he knew. He'd always known. Showing up wasn't about being physically present. His father had taught him that you could show up every day and still not be there. You could live in the same house and still abandon your family. Darius pulled over at a scenic overlook near Stinson Beach, turned off the car, and sat there watching the waves crash against the rocks. His phone rang. Caroline. He answered this time. Hey. Her voice was careful, neutral. Where are you? I don't know. Stinson Beach, maybe? I'm looking at the ocean. She was quiet for a moment. Then, that was your son. It wasn't a question. Yeah, and The woman, Kendra, my ex. We built Levante Tech together. We were together for 3 years. She got pregnant. He couldn't finish the sentence. There were too many endings. I left. I ran. I failed. I proved myself exactly like my father. You didn't know? Caroline asked quietly. I knew. I knew she was pregnant when we broke up, but she didn't want me involved. She filed for full custody, and I just let her. Another long pause. Darius could hear traffic in the background of her call. She was still at the conference, probably standing outside in the noise and chaos, trying to have a private conversation in public. Do you love me, Darius? The question hit him sideways. What? Caroline, of course. Do you love me? Or do you love that I fit into your life without asking for too much? He didn't answer. He couldn't. I'm not angry, she continued. I'm not even hurt, really. I think part of me always knew I was the safe choice. The woman who understood the 70-hour work weeks and the constant travel, and the way your phone is basically a third person in our relationship. She laughed, but it sounded sad. But I was okay with that, because I thought that's just how you were. Driven, ambitious, focused, Caroline. But that little boy looked at you with your eyes, Darius, and you looked at him like he was the answer to a question you didn't know you'd been asking. That's not how you've ever looked at me. That's not fair, isn't it? She sighed. I'm going back to the hotel. I'll pack my things. I think we both know this engagement was more about timing than anything else. You proposed because you're 33, and that's what successful men do at 33. And I said yes, because I'm 35 and tired of dating. And you seemed like a good fit on paper. We're good together. We're compatible. That's different. Her voice softened. I want more than compatible, Darius. I want someone who looks at me the way you looked at that little boy, and you want to figure out how to be a father. Those things aren't the same direction. She hung up. Darius sat there holding his phone, watching the waves, and felt the weight of his own choices settling over him like a blanket he couldn't kick off. Caroline was right. About all of it. He'd proposed to her because she made sense, because she was beautiful and smart, and didn't ask him to be emotionally available in ways that scared him, because being engaged to her looked like the life he was supposed to have at this point in his trajectory. But he'd never looked at her the way he'd looked at Cameron in that elevator, with wonder, with fear, with the sudden, terrible knowledge that his entire life had been pointing toward a moment he'd already missed. His phone buzzed again, a text from a number he didn't have saved. But somehow, he knew. Kendra, we're at the Science Museum, Building 2, 2nd floor, dinosaur exhibit. In case you meant it. His hands were shaking as he typed back. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He started the car and drove back toward the city, his heart pounding like he was heading into the most important meeting of his life, which he supposed he was. The California Academy of Sciences was packed with families. Kids running around with museum maps, parents trailing after them with the exhausted patience of people who'd made a tactical error in choosing a Saturday afternoon for education. Darius paid for admission, with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, and made his way to the 2nd floor. He found them standing in front of a massive T-Rex skeleton. Cameron was practically vibrating with excitement, pointing at different bones and explaining something to Kendra in a voice loud enough to echo. Kendra was listening with complete attention, asking questions, genuinely engaged in whatever 4-year-old theory he was spinning. She was a good mother. Darius could see it in every gesture. The way she automatically steadied Cameron when he climbed up to see better. The way she'd brought snacks in a small backpack. The way she was present for this. For him, in a way that was so total it hurt to witness. Because Darius recognized it now. That kind of presence. That kind of showing up. It was what he'd been looking for his entire childhood. And what he'd failed to give when it mattered. Kendra saw him approaching and said something to Cameron, who turned and waved enthusiastically. Darius, you came to see the dinosaurs. I did. He walked over slowly, carefully, like approaching something wild that might spook. Thanks for inviting me. Cameron looked confused. I didn't invite you. Mommy did. Right. Well, I'm glad to be here. Do you know what this is? Cameron pointed at the skeleton. It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. T-Rex for short. It means Tyrant Lizard King. Isn't that cool? That's very cool. It lived millions of years ago. Like millions and millions. Before people. Before anything. Cameron's face was so earnest, so full of wonder. Did you know their arms were really small compared to their body? Scientists think they use them for holding on to prey, or maybe helping them get up from the ground. Darius knelt down, bringing himself to Cameron's eye level again. I didn't know that. You're really smart. I know lots of stuff. No false modesty with 4-year-olds. Just facts. Mommy says, I'm curious. Curiosity is good. That means you want to learn. What do you do? The question was so direct, so simple. I work with technology. I help build tools that make things easier for people. Like a computer. Kind of like that. Yeah? Cool. Cameron had already moved on, his attention shifting to the next skeleton. Mommy, can we see the Triceratops? In a minute, baby. Kendra's eyes were on Darius, assessing. Go look at the sign over there and tell me what you learn. Cameron scampered off, his light-up sneakers flashing as he ran. Darius stood up slowly, and suddenly he was alone with Kendra in the middle of a crowded museum, with everything unsaid hanging between them. Thank you for letting me come, he started. Don't thank me yet. We need to talk, and you're not going to like it. Okay. She led him to a quieter corner, where they could still see Cameron, but had a bit of space. When she spoke, her voice was low, but firm. I meant what I said. Don't come around unless you're all in. Because he's 4, Darius. 4. He's at the age where he's starting to ask questions about who his daddy is and why other kids have them, and he doesn't. And I've been handling it okay so far, but if you show up now and then disappear again. Her voice cracked slightly. I can handle you hurting me. I've been handling that for 4 years. But I will not let you hurt him. I don't want to hurt him. I want... He stopped, because he didn't actually know how to finish that sentence. What? Kendra pressed. You want to be a father? Part-time? When it's convenient? When it fits into your schedule? No. I want... He forced himself to say it. I want to be in his life. Really in it. I don't know how yet. I don't know what that looks like, or if I'll be any good at it. But I know I can't walk away from him again. Not after seeing him. Not after... After what? After realizing that I missed 4 years, and I can't get them back. His voice was rough. I missed his birth. his first word, his first steps, all of it. And I can make 1,000 excuses about why, about how you said you didn't want me involved, about how I was scared, about how I didn't know what to do. But the truth is, I ran. I chose the easier thing. And I can't do that again. Kendra studied his face for a long moment. You hurt me, Darius. You hurt me in ways I'm still working through. When I needed you most, you weren't there, and I built a whole life without you. A good life. Cameron is happy. He's smart and funny and kind. And he doesn't need you to be okay. I know, but... She exhaled slowly. He deserves to know his father. If you're actually ready to be that. Not the idea of it. Not when it's easy, but the hard days too. The days when he's sick. The days when he has a tantrum in Target because you won't buy him the toy he wants. The days when he wakes up at 3 a.m. from a nightmare and needs you to sit with him. All of it. I want all of it. Do you? Or do you want the Instagram version? The fun weekends and dinosaur museums and feeling like a good guy. Darius thought about his father, about all those times he'd been there, but not really, about the ways you could fail someone while technically doing all the right things. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know if I'll be good at it, but I want to try, really try. And if I mess up, when I mess up, I want to do better. Want to learn. Kendra's expression softened fractionally. You broke my heart, you know. I thought we were building something, not just the company. Us. A future. And you just checked out. I know. And I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I'm sorry. Why? Why did you check out? This was the question he'd been avoiding for 4 years, the one he'd never let himself answer, because answering it meant looking at the ugliest parts of himself, because I was terrified of becoming my father. The words came out in a rush. My dad was there, but not really there, you know. Like, he lived in our house, but he was always somewhere else in his head. And my mom spent my whole childhood trying to get him to show up, and he just couldn't or wouldn't. And I grew up feeling invisible, like I had to earn his attention. And I promised myself I'd never do that to my own kid. Oh, you just didn't have the kid. So I ran before I could fail. Because if I wasn't there, I couldn't become him. Except, he laughed bitterly, except that by running, I became exactly what I was afraid of. Absent. Gone. Just in a different way. Kendra was quiet for a moment, watching Cameron across the room. Your father. Is he still alive? Yeah, he and my mom are still together. Still in Oakland. Still doing that same dance where she reaches and he pulls away. Does Cameron remind you of you? When you were little? Darius looked at his son, at the way he moved with unself-conscious joy, the way he asked questions without fear of looking stupid, the way he existed in the moment with complete presence. No, he said honestly. Cameron seems happy, confident, secure. I was none of those things. That's because he has me. Kendra's voice was gentle, but firm. He has a mother who shows up every day, no matter what. And if you want to be part of his life, you need to understand. I set the terms, not you. I decide what his life looks like, and you fit into it. If you can prove you're worth the risk. I understand. Do you? Because here's what I'm offering. Supervised visits. Once a week. For now. You can see him. Spend time with him. Get to know him. But I'm there. And if at any point I think this is hurting him more than helping him, I'm done. We're gone. No second chances. Okay. And need therapy? Darius blinked. What? Therapy. If you're serious about being a father, you need to work through your own stuff. Use kids pick up on everything. And I won't have Cameron absorbing your unresolved trauma with your father. He started to protest, then stopped. Because she, right? Okay, he said again. I'll find a therapist. I have a name for you. Someone who specializes in father-son relationships and generational patterns. She's good. I've been seeing her myself. For different reasons. You're in therapy. Kendra's smile was sad. Being a single mother and running a company and dealing with the aftermath of being left by someone I loved. Yeah, Darius, I'm in therapy. That's what showing up looks like. Doing the work, even when it's hard. Cameron came running back over, slightly breathless. Mommy, did you know the Triceratops had 3 horns and a frill, and they think maybe the frill was for attracting mates, or maybe for fighting, or maybe just for staying cool? I did not know that. That's fascinating. Kendra ruffled his hair affectionately. Hey, baby, I need to tell you something. Remember how I said Darius is my friend? Yeah, well, he's a little more than that. He's your dad. Cameron looked at Darius, his little face scrunching up in confusion. My dad? Yeah, baby. I thought I didn't have a dad. You do. He wasn't around before, but he wants to be now. If that's okay with you. Cameron processed this with the seriousness of a child, trying to understand adult concepts that don't quite make sense. Do other dads like dinosaurs? Darius felt his throat tighten. I don't know about other dads, but I'd like to learn about dinosaurs. If you want to teach me, I'm a really good teacher. Mommy says so. Bet you are. Okay. Cameron seemed to accept this with the easy adaptability of childhood. Then, because 4-year-olds are nothing if not practical. Are you rich? Mommy says some dads have lots of money. Cameron. Kendra looked mortified. But Darius laughed. Actually laughed. For the first time in what felt like days. I do okay. Why? Because I want a big dinosaur toy. The kind that roars. Can you get me that? Cameron Lawson. We do not ask people for things, Kendra started. But Darius shook his head. How about this? He said to Cameron. How about I earn it? I spend time with you. I learn about dinosaurs. I show up when I say I will, and if I do that, if I prove I'm not going anywhere, then yeah, I'll get you the biggest dinosaur toy we can find. Cameron's eyes went wide. Really? Really? But you have to help me. Deal? Cameron stuck out his little hand solemnly, and Darius shook it, feeling the weight of the promise settle into his bones. This was it. This was showing up. The first few weeks were harder than Darius expected. Not because Cameron was difficult. The opposite, actually. Cameron was easy to love. He was bright and funny, and asked approximately 6 million questions per hour, and had opinions about everything from what made a good sandwich to whether dragons could have existed if they'd been smaller. The hard part was Darius himself. Because showing up consistently, really showing up, the way Kendra did, the way Cameron deserved, required something Darius had spent his entire adult life avoiding, being present even when it was uncomfortable. Their first supervised visit was at a park in the Mission. Kendra sat on a bench within sight, while Darius pushed Cameron on the swings. "Higher," Cameron squealed. "Make me fly." Darius pushed higher, watching his son's legs kick out with joy, and felt something unfurl in his chest. Something warm and terrifying and completely new. "What's your favorite food?" Cameron called over his shoulder. I don't know. Pizza, maybe? That's boring. Mine is macaroni and cheese with the dinosaur-shaped noodles, and also strawberries and ice cream, but not all together. That's a solid list. What's your favorite color? Blue? Me too. Well, blue and green. And sometimes red. Do you have a favorite dinosaur? I'm still learning about them. You'll have to help me choose. I can do that. I'm an expert. By the end of the hour, Darius was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. It was emotional exhaustion. The exhaustion of being fully engaged, fully present, fully there for an entire 60 minutes. When Kendra called time, Cameron hugged Darius goodbye. A quick, unselfconscious hug that lasted maybe 3 seconds, but felt like the most important 3 seconds of Darius's life. "Same time next week?" Cameron asked, hopefully. "Same time next week," Darius confirmed. He kept that promise. The next one. The one after that. Some weeks were easy. They went to the zoo. They built Lego towers. They read books about space and trucks and animals. Some weeks were harder. Cameron had a meltdown because his shoelace broke. Cameron didn't want to leave the playground. Cameron was tired and cranky and said he wanted mommy, not Darius. Those weeks, Darius had to remind himself, this is what showing up looks like. Not just the Instagram moments. The hard ones, too. He started therapy with Dr. Patricia Oconyo, the therapist Kendra had recommended. The first session was brutal. "Tell me about your father," Dr. Oconyo said, her voice kind but direct. "He was there, but not there. You know, I don't explain it to me." So Darius did. He talked about being 7 years old and learning what absence felt like, about the cold thing in his chest that never really went away, about promising himself he'd never be that kind of man, and then becoming exactly that. "And now?" Dr. Conyo asked. "What are you afraid of now? That I'll fail Cameron the way my father failed me. What would failure look like?" Darius thought about it, missing his life, being there but not really present, making him feel like he has to earn my love. And what would success look like? He didn't have an answer for that. Not right away, but over the following weeks and months. With Dr. Oconyo's help, he started to figure it out. Success looked like showing up even when he was tired. Success looked like putting his phone away during their visits. Success looked like apologizing when he messed up. Success looked like learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Success looked like being honest with Cameron, with Kendra, with himself. It wasn't perfect. Darius still had moments where he wanted to retreat into work, into the familiar comfort of problems he knew how to solve. But he was learning. Slowly, painfully, learning. 6 months after the elevator, Kendra invited him to Cameron's 5th birthday party. It was at their apartment in the outer Richmond, a cozy 2-bedroom that Kendra had filled with plants and books and photos of Cameron at every age. Darius recognized none of it, except the woman moving through it with practiced ease. There were maybe 15 kids running around, hopped up on sugar and chaos. Parents clustered in the kitchen, making small talk, and Cameron, dressed in a T-Rex costume that was slightly too big for him, was the happiest Darius had ever seen him. "Daria!" He ran over when he spotted him, all teeth and joy. "You came." "Of course I came. I promised, didn't I?" "Yeah, but some people say they'll come and then don't." He said it matter-of-factly, without judgment, but it landed in Darius's chest like a stone. "I'm not some people," Darius said firmly. "When I promise you something, I mean it." "Good. Come see my cake. It has dinosaurs on it." The party was loud and overwhelming and perfect. Darius helped with games, passed out cake, and watched Cameron blow out his candles with the kind of concentration usually reserved for brain surgery. Toward the end, when most of the guests had left and the apartment was littered with wrapping paper and abandoned toys, Cameron climbed into Darius's lap with the exhausted satisfaction of a child who'd had the best day. "Did you have a good birthday?" Darius asked. "The best. You know what my wish was?" "I thought you weren't supposed to tell." "It's okay. It already came true." Cameron looked up at him with those eyes, Darius's eyes. "I wished you'd Darius's throat closed up completely. He pulled Cameron closer, pressing his face into his son's hair that smelled like birthday cake and kid shampoo and home. "I'm staying," he managed. "I promise." Kendra was watching from the kitchen doorway, her expression complicated. When Cameron finally drifted off in Darius's arms, she came over and gently extracted him. "I'll put him to bed. Stay if you want. We should talk." Darius helped clean up while she put Cameron down, stacking paper plates and tying trash bags, and trying not to think about the conversation coming. When Kendra emerged from the bedroom, she had 2 glasses of wine and a tired smile. "You showed up," she said simply, handing him a glass. Yeah, but..." She settled onto the couch next to him, maintaining a careful distance. "A lot of people say things, Darius. You've been saying things for 6 months, but you've also been doing things. That's different. I meant it. When I said I wanted to be in his life, I meant it. I can see that." She sipped her wine, looking at him over the rim of the glass. "Dr. Okonjo said you've been consistent with therapy. You talk to my therapist?" "She's my referral. I check in occasionally. Make sure you're actually doing the work." At his expression, she added, "Don't look so surprised. I told you. I set the terms. Part of those terms is making sure you're taking this seriously." "I am. I'm taking it so seriously, it terrifies me." "Good. That terror means you understand what's at stake." She set down her glass. "I want to adjust our arrangement." Darius's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Cameron asks about you constantly. When is Darius coming? Can Darius come to my school event? Does Darius like this drawing? And I think we're ready for unsupervised visits. If you want that." "Are you serious?" "1 weekend a month. You pick him up Friday after school. You keep him until Sunday evening. You figure out the logistics. The meals, the bedtime routine. All of it." "Kendra, I trust you." She said it simply, but Darius heard the weight behind it. Trust wasn't something she gave easily. "Not anymore. You've shown up. Every single week. Even the week you had the flu, you still video called to read him a bedtime story. Even when your company had that crisis. And I know you were drowning. You still made time. So yeah, I trust you. Darius felt his eyes burning. Thank you. Oh, don't thank me. Just keep showing up. They sat in silence for a moment. The apartment quiet, except for the distant hum of the city outside. Can I ask you something? Darius said, finally. Why did you come back to San Francisco? You could have stayed in Atlanta. Built your life there where I'd never run into you. Kendra laughed, softly. I tried that, actually. Lived with my sister for a year after Cameron was born. But then I realized I was running too. Running from you. Running from what we'd built. Running from the memories. And I didn't want Cameron to grow up with a mother who was running. So, I came back. 2K job with a fintech startup. Built something new. And if we ran into you? She shrugged. I figured I'd handle it. You handled it pretty well. In the elevator. You didn't fall apart. Oh, I fell apart. Just not where you could see it. She smiled sadly. I've gotten good at that. Falling apart in private. I'm sorry for all of it. For not being there. For making you do it alone. I know. And I'm working on forgiving you. It's a process. She met his eyes, but I need you to understand something. We're not getting back together. That ship sailed. What we're doing now? This is co-parenting. Building a friendship again. Maybe. For Cameron's sake. But it's not romance. I know. Do you? Because I saw your face in that elevator, and I want to be clear. Whatever you're feeling. Nostalgia, regret, the appeal of the road not taken. That's not about me. That's about you figuring out who you want to be. She was right. Of course she was right. What happened with your fiancé? Kendra asked. We ended it. Mutually. She knew I wasn't all in. Were you ever all in with anyone? Darius thought about it. Honestly, I thought I was. With you. But I think I was more in love with the idea of us than the reality. The reality required me to be vulnerable, to be present, to show up even when it was hard. And I didn't know how. And now I'm learning. Slowly. But I'm learning. Kendra studied him for a long moment. You're different. Not completely different, but different enough that I can see it. Therapy helps. So does having a son who won't let you hide. She smiled. He's relentless. In the best way. He gets that from you. He gets a lot from me. But he's got your curiosity. Your way of looking at problems like they're puzzles to solve. Your terrible sense of humor. My sense of humor is excellent. You made a dad joke last week about dinosaurs. Cameron thought it was hilarious. I was embarrassed for you both. They laughed, and it felt good. Easy. Like maybe they could find their way back to friendship. Even if romance was off the table. For what it's worth, Darius said quietly, you're an incredible mother. Cameron is lucky to have you. He's lucky to have us both. Now that you're actually here. The first unsupervised weekend was terrifying. Darius picked Cameron up from school on a Friday afternoon, his apartment suddenly feeling way too big and empty and not at all kid-friendly. Do you have toys? Cameron asked, looking around skeptically. Not yet. I thought maybe we could go buy some together. Cameron's face lit up. Really? They spent 2 hours at Target, Cameron loading the cart with dinosaurs and Lego sets and art supplies, Darius realizing he had absolutely no idea what 5-year-olds needed. Do I eat broccoli? He asked at dinner, presenting the steamed vegetables hopefully. Cameron made a face. It's okay. Mommy makes me eat it. What if we put cheese on it? Everything's better with cheese. They were finding their rhythm. Saturday, they went to the exploratorium. Cameron ran from exhibit to exhibit, asking questions faster than Darius could answer them. Why did sound travel? How did light work? What made colors? I don't know, became Darius's most common answer, followed quickly by let's find out together. That night, Cameron asked if Darius would read him a story. 3 stories, Cameron negotiated. Mommy always reads 3. 2 stories. 3. 2.5. Cameron giggled. That's not how stories work. Fine. 3 stories. But then you sleep. They read about dragons and spaceships and a little boy who wasn't afraid of the dark. Cameron fell asleep halfway through the 3rd story, his small body curled trustingly against Darius's side. Darius stayed there for a while, after Cameron drifted off, just watching him breathe, memorizing the curve of his cheek, the impossible length of his eyelashes, the way his mouth was slightly open as he dreamed whatever 5-year-olds dream about. This was it. This what he'd been missing. Not success, not money, not the validation of building something impressive. This small person who trusted him enough to fall asleep on him. This feeling of being necessary not because of what you could do or build or achieve, but simply because you showed up. Sunday morning, Cameron woke him up at 6:30 a.m. by jumping on the bed. Darius, can we make pancakes? The fancy kind. They made pancakes. Well, they made something vaguely pancake-shaped. Cameron insisted on helping, which meant batter ended up everywhere, except the pan. But they laughed the whole time. And when they finally produced something edible, Cameron declared them the best pancakes he'd ever had. Don't tell Mommy, he whispered conspiratorially. Your secret's safe with me. When Kendra came to pick him up that evening, Cameron talked non-stop about everything they'd done. The Target trip, the best pancakes ever, which made Kendra raise an eyebrow at Darius. The stories. Can I come back next weekend? Cameron asked. Not next weekend, baby. But soon, Kendra promised. After they left, Darius stood in his suddenly quiet apartment, surrounded by new dinosaur toys and the lingering scent of kid shampoo, and realized something. He wasn't just learning to be a father. He was learning to be human. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's trying to do better, to show up, to break the cycles they inherited. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one thing you're trying to do differently than the generation before you? Because this journey Darius is on, it's not just about him. It's about all of us trying to heal, trying to grow, trying to be better than our broken pieces. Tea with me. We're almost home. 2 years later, Darius was at Cameron's 1st grade parent-teacher conference, sitting next to Kendra in the 2 small chairs designed for 6-year-olds, listening to Mrs. Rodriguez explain that Cameron was exceptionally bright, curious, and kind. He's also a leader, Mrs. Rodriguez continued. The other children look up to him. He's always helping, always including everyone. You should be very proud. Kendra beamed. Darius felt his chest expand with a pride so intense it was almost painful. After the conference, they walked out together into the cool October evening. Cameron was at an after-school program. Wouldn't be ready for pickup for another hour. Coffee, Kendra suggested. There's a place around the corner. They'd gotten good at this over the past 2 years. Co-parenting, friendly conversation, shared pride in their son. They'd found a rhythm that worked, separate lives that intersected in all the places Cameron existed. The coffee shop was quiet, mostly empty. They ordered and settled into a corner booth. He really is amazing, Darius said. And you did that. All those years when I wasn't there, you raised him to be this incredible kid. We're both doing it now. Kendra's voice was gentle. You've been consistent, Darius. 2 years of showing up. That matters. I almost didn't. You know that, right? That day in the elevator, I almost just let you walk away again. What stopped you? His eyes. He has my eyes. And I saw myself at his age, and I couldn't. He stopped, swallowed. I couldn't be absent from his life, the way my dad was absent from mine. Have you talked to your father? Since all this, Darius nodded. Yeah, I went to see him a few months ago. Took Cameron with me. How that go? Strange. My dad, he tried. He was awkward with Cameron, didn't really know how to talk to him. But he tried. And afterward, just him and me, we talked. Really talked. For maybe the first time in my life. Darius stared into his coffee. I asked him why. Why he was always so distant. You know what he said? What? He said he was scared. Terrified, actually. That he'd mess up. That he wasn't good enough. That loving me and my mom meant risk, meant vulnerability, meant potentially failing them. So he kept a distance, thought it was safer. Kendra was quiet for a moment. That's sad. Yeah, it is. But I understood it. Because I did the same thing. He looked up at her. I was so afraid of becoming him that I became him. Just in a different way. But you changed. Because I had to. Because Cameron deserved better. Because you forced me to. He smiled. Thank you. For not making it easy. For setting boundaries. For making me prove I meant it. You're welcome. She hesitated. Then I need to tell you something. Something in her tone made him tense. Okay, I'm dating someone. The words hung in the air between them. Darius felt something twist in his chest. Not quite jealousy. More like the echo of what used to be. His name is Marcus. He's a pediatrician at UCSF. We've been seeing each other for about 3 months. Does Cameron know? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. Make sure you're okay with it. You don't need my permission, Kendra. I know. But parenting means communication. And if this gets serious, if he becomes part of Cameron's life, I want us to be on the same page. Darius thought about it. Really thought about it. And found, to his surprise, that he genuinely was okay with it. He good to you. Yeah, he's kind. Patient. He makes me laugh. And he's good with kids, obviously, since it's literally his job. Then I'm happy for you. Really? I want you to be happy, Kendra. I spent too much time making you unhappy. You deserve good things. She blinked, her eyes suddenly bright. Thank you. That means a lot. Will I get to meet him? Probably not for a while. I'm taking it slow. But eventually, yeah, if it gets serious. They finished their coffee, talking about lighter things. Cameron's upcoming school play. The science fair project they needed to help him with. Thanksgiving plans. It was easy, comfortable. The way friendship should be. When they picked up Cameron from the after-school program, he ran to both of them, grabbing a hand from each. Did Mrs. Rodriguez say I'm smart? He asked, hopefully. She said you're brilliant, Kendra confirmed. And kind, Darius added. She said you're kind. That's because you and Mommy taught me to be kind. They walked to parking lot together, Cameron between them, swinging their hands. To anyone watching, they might have looked like a regular family. And, in a way, they were. Just not the traditional kind. They were a family built from broken pieces, glued back together with intention and effort, and showing up even when it was hard. Which, Darius was learning, was the only kind of family that really lasted. 1 year later, the coming full circle. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor of the Presidio Tower, and Darius smiled at the memory. 3 years. It had been 3 years since that moment. That changed everything. Cameron was 7 now, gap-toothed and brilliant, currently at school learning about the solar system and practicing for his second-grade talent show where he was going to recite dinosaur facts in what he insisted was a rap. It very much was not a rap. But Darius wasn't going to tell him that. Darius was here for different reason today. He stepped out of the elevator and into the conference space, now familiar. The same glass walls, the same tech industry energy. But this time, he wasn't here as a venture capitalist attending a conference. He was here as a speaker. The panel was called Building While Healing, the New Founder Journey. And Darius had been invited to talk about his path. The companies he'd built, yes, but also the personal growth, the therapy, the learning to show up. They'd told him to prepare a 10-minute talk about what success really means. He stood at the podium, looking out at a room full of ambitious 20-somethings and 30-somethings, all hungry for the secret formula. I'm supposed to tell you about success, he started, about how to build unicorns and raise funding and scale companies. And I can do that. Levante Tech sold for $2.4 billion 2 years ago. I've advised a dozen startups. I know the game. But that's not what I want to talk about. 7 years ago, I had a company, a beautiful partner, and a baby on the way. And I ran. I chose the company over the family. I chose the ambition over the love. I chose the safe distance over the vulnerable presence. And I told myself it was because I was focused, driven, building something that mattered. Really, I was terrified. Terrified of failing. Terrified of being needed. Terrified of becoming my father who was there but never really present. So I became exactly that. Just in a different way. 3 years ago, I ran into my ex and my son in an elevator. He was 4. I'd missed 4 years. And that moment, that elevator ride, forced me to choose again. This time, I chose differently. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that success is only about family, that ambition is bad, that building companies doesn't matter. It does matter. The work we do matters. But here's what I learned. All the success in the world means nothing if you're not willing to show up for the people who need you. really show up. Not just the Instagram version. The hard days too. The boring days. The days when showing up means putting your phone down and being present. My son is 7 now, and I get to be his father. Not because I deserve it. Because I finally learned what showing up actually means. It means therapy. It means doing the work on yourself that no one sees. It means apologizing when you're wrong. It means being vulnerable even when it's terrifying. It means choosing connection over comfort. So when you leave here today with your ambitious plans and your big dreams, remember, the most important thing you'll ever build isn't a company. It's relationships. It's healing. It's the courage to show up even when, especially when, you're scared. The room was silent when he finished. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. But Darius wasn't thinking about the applause. He was thinking about Cameron's talent show on Friday. About the weekend camping trip they had planned. About dinner with Kendra and her fiancé Marcus next week, where Cameron would probably ask 6 million questions and spill something, and be completely, perfectly himself. He was thinking about showing up. Not someday. Now. Every day. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Final reflection. Hey, family. It's Marcus again. I started this story by asking, when your past shows up holding the future you walked away from, can you find the courage to choose differently? For Darius, the answer was yes. But not easily, not perfectly, not without stumbling. He had to face the hardest truth, that he'd become the thing he feared. That fear itself had shaped him into his father's shadow. But here's what I want you to hear. It's never too late. Not to apologize. Not to show up. Not to choose again. Some of you watching this are Darius. You're the person who ran, who chose safety over vulnerability, who let fear win. And some of you are Kendra. You're the person who got left, who built a life from broken pieces, who's not sure you can trust again. And some of you are Cameron. You're the child waiting, the one who deserves better, the one who doesn't understand why some people can't just stay. Whoever you are in this story, hear this. Healing is possible. Change is possible. Showing up is possible. But it requires work. Real work. The kind that makes you uncomfortable. The kind that forces you to face the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. It requires therapy. It requires humility. It requires showing up day after day after day, even when no one's watching, even when it's hard, even when you want to run. That's what Darius learned. That's what his father never learned. That's the cycle Darius chose to break. Not by being perfect, by being present, not by having all the answers, by doing the work anyway, not by erasing his mistakes, by doing better going forward. You don't have to be perfect to show up. You just have to be willing. That's the story. That's the lesson. That's the hope. If this hit you in your chest, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. And leave a comment telling me, what are you going to show up for this week? Because the world needs more people who choose presence over perfection. More people who do the work. More people who break the cycles. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And remember, You're capable of more healing, more growth, more change than you think. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We've got more stories coming that are going to move you, challenge you, and remind you that transformation is always possible. Until next time, keep showing up. This is Marcus, and this is Melanin Stories Hub. Peace.